Hey y'all, it's KimBoo, and this video is going to be short. I'm going to go over what makes the personal projects management method so unique and why it might be the answer to your problems in trying to manage your business and the other enterprises that you have in your life as a solopreneur, freelancer, or creator. So I'm sure if you've watched this, chances are really good that you have already tried multiple different project management solutions, whether it's the storied get things done method, or whether you've bought a subscription to Asana or Trello, or if you've purchased mini paper planners. I bet you have. Most of the solopreneurs and business owners that I work with have gone through so many different planners, monthly planners, special, niche business planners. Um, a lot of my friends are authors, so, writing a book planner. So many planners, so many planners, so many mostly empty planners. And there's a reason for that. And that's what we're going to go into today, because what the PPM method is going to give you is not an empty planner that you have to fill. There are worksheets, there are things that you're going to have to work through, but once you've done that, it will mostly go along on cruise control. You will not be spending a lot of time being the project manager. So I wanted to kind of talk about the differences in this video. So most project management or productivity apps assume that you're running one project at a time, or possibly two. I do remember when I tried to set up multiple projects in both Trello and Asana. This was a while ago. It may be easier now, but there was no way to do overlap on those two. And the reason I needed overlap on those two is because even though they were different projects, they were all under the same umbrella of things that were going on. And, they may have shared marketing, even though they're very different projects. So I know a lot of people who are in that same boat, and it just made it so difficult to use those systems because you're trying to fit everything. It's the old, the round peg into the square hole situation. It's not very effective. And so what would happen is people would set up these planners, or people being me and you and all my friends would set up these planners or set up these apps, and then realize that, well, there's 10 other things that could be in this project plan but aren't, and it would be difficult to put them in, and it just made things very, very difficult. So that's one thing about traditional project management and productivity apps, that PPM is not like that. Secondly, most of those systems, all of those systems, assume that someone somewhere is being the project manager. So let me be very clear. In my book on personal projects management, I go into this a lot more detail, but there's a reason that project management is a highly paid job in many fields, whether it's construction or software or manufacturing or, you know, marketing, even some of the more softer fields. Like, you've got someone there running the project. That is their job. That is their job definition. The reason for that is it takes a lot of time and energy. You gotta ride herd. You gotta make sure all the pieces are moving. You've got to enter all the data on what stage every piece is at, what every resource, where every resource is. It's all managed by one person. Now, sometimes those people are bad at their jobs. I'm not going to go into all the ways that doesn't work very well, but it's designed to work that way. For solopreneurs and small business owners and freelancers and creatives, we're it. Like, I don't have a project manager like looking over my shoulder telling me what I need to do and when my deadline is. I am the project manager. I am the one who has to fill out all the charts and the calendars and the due dates and the check-ins and the blah blah blah, just name it. I'm the one who has to do that. You're a solopreneur, you're a small business owner, you have to do that. How much time do you really have to do that? No. In fact, most of the time I would say, honestly, I would say the vast majority of time, 85, 90% of the time, that small business owners or solopreneurs stop using a productivity app or a project management system is because they get overwhelmed with trying to keep it up to date. It was designed for teams, and it was designed for someone somewhere to have the job of project manager. In contrast, PPM assumes you're it. You're the project manager. Let's try to make your life as simple as possible. Third, most traditional productivity systems and project management apps and all that, they really assume that your personal life is separate from your business or work life. And there's a reason for that, because our society as a whole has been designed that way. Our industrial society and moving into information society, the information age, still based very much on the industrial model of you go to work and then you come home, and those are very, there's a line there that should not cross. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and that line was starting to get a little blurred, certainly as women started moving into the workforce. At least here in America, I'm in the United States, so I'm everything I say is relevant to that background and what I know personally and the world, the business world that I've worked in. But I think a lot of this is pretty international at this point. Capitalism, the industrial age, really tried to make business and personal life very separate. However you want to label those different areas, arenas, gender them, whatever, they are supposed to be kept separate. If you're a solopreneur, that's not true. It's not true. It's very not true. I have friends who are running a business, raising a child or two or three, trying to get certification or going back for a degree, an academic degree, who are caretakers for elderly parents or sick relatives, disabled relatives, or a disabled spouse. These are all elements that affect our lives as solopreneurs, as small business owners. We can't just have a project of creating online courses or writing a book or manufacturing my cool new backpack design without taking all that other stuff into account. Most project management systems don't do that, don't allow for that. If anything, you can transfer all your responsibilities onto your digital calendar like Outlook or Google Calendar or iCal, but there's still supposed to be a separation there. It doesn't really allow for you to get a big picture view of what's going on with you personally and business-wise, because they do relate, they do interlap, they are intertwined in our lives in a way that we just can't capture in most traditional project management software apps systems. And finally, project management came out of manufacturing and construction. Which came first, the chicken or the egg, I'm not really sure, but those were the two main fields. The project management as a field that is practiced with people who are certified project managers, that's where it originated, in those two main industries. And it crossed the stream and came over into all the other industries, and everybody likes the name project management because it sounds very efficient, and it can be, but it can also really be overwhelming, especially depending on what industry you're in. But it's good to keep that in mind when you look at these different apps and these different systems and these different planners, because they're all very tied to the calendar. If you're not familiar with the concept of a Gantt chart, it's basically a timeline stream of it looks very matrixy sometimes. You know, you've got, depending on how many things are going on, you've got all these multiple lines, and each line has a colored bar, and that colored bar, you know, falls somewhere on the time scale. It could be tied to the actual calendar, or it could be tied to, you know, just a set of time, like you've got 6 weeks, whenever it starts, whenever it ends, it's got to happen in 6 weeks. So you've got all these things tied to a timeline, which of course is very useful. That's why it works. It's like if you've got a deadline, if you know your product needs to hit the shelves, you know, and on a, you know, before the Christmas rush, before the holiday rush, winter holiday rush, then you can work backwards and say, well, okay, if it's going to be on the shelves by this date, it needs to be shipping by this date, it needs to be manufactured by this date, it needs to be, you know, you can do that, and that's very helpful. If you're an author like me and most of my friends, you know, the release date is, you know, kind of in stone. Like if you're going to release your book on November 2nd, then by golly, you better have it edited and ready to go on November 2nd. So whether you're publisher or you yourself, if you're self-published, and hit that little button and poof, there's the book on November 2nd. However, there's not a lot of flexibility in those systems for things that aren't directly tied to a calendar. And there's very little, if no, flexibility in those systems for allowing things to be relational. You know, if this domino block gets knocked over, then these three things go down. If one of your enterprises, your guideposts, as I call them in PPM, is being a parent, and you're a part-time online course creator, and one of your children or all of your children gets sick, which in our modern world is a possibility, the pandemic that shall not be named, that might affect everything else about your business. And you need to be able to have a full, it's not just you being able to go into the project management system and say, well, I'm going to miss this deadline, so the project manager over in the other office needs to rearrange everything so that it all gets done before the deadline is due. That's all on you. That's all on you. So if you are going to make these allowances, you've got to know what the big picture is. You've got to know what it means if you don't post that Facebook ad on a certain day. You know, okay, well, is that all right? Uh, does it throw everything else off? Can you skip a week? You can't go to the project manager to be told that. You're not going to have a staff member that you can hand it off to so they can cover it for you. You've got to know the big picture of how everything relates to each other. And as much as I admire a lot of the project management software, well, maybe not so much MS Project, it's notoriously Byzantine in its use. It's difficult, it has a steep learning curve, let's put it that way. But that's true of a lot of them. Asana, if you get in there, they've simplified it a lot over the years to onboard into things like Asana and Monday. Notion as a database system is very helpful for project tracking, in that, you know, you can have different levels and different, you know, states and different views of the data, all very helpful stuff. But if you really just need to know what is the absolute minimum I have to do on Tuesday to keep my business running while my kid is running a fever and my spouse is on away doing business travel, or is swamped with their own project at work, or I have, you know, a trip planned to go visit my ailing mother, like, you gotta know. You gotta know if that Tuesday needs to be shoved around. You've got to know what you need to do. You've got to know how it fits into the big picture. And that is where PPM really excels. The few people who the people who have implemented PPM in their lives, including me, it's what I use. Basically, PPM is actually a brain dump of what I do internally in my brain to make everything work. And there's a lot there. It's a mess. But those of us who have implemented this system have found it to be incredibly helpful, holistic, flexible, and fluid. So those are the 4 reasons that traditional project management systems and apps have failed you, and why PPM method will not fail you. So look for some other videos on this channel. I go into more detail about what exactly PPM is. I go into some of the terms and explain exactly what I mean by some of those terms. You think you know what a project is? You probably don't, my friend. I will be going into that into detail on this very YouTube channel. So subscribe, click the little bell thingy, click, 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 so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video. And I thank you very much for being here. Have a good day, y'all.